All right.
Good morning, and it's a little cold outside. I'm sure you're getting used to it now. We sure had our uh, quotient of hot, so I guess you can get used to the weather both ways. So we are going to review a few things that I want to cover and kind of remind everybody about life in the big city. One of the things that agents find, for some reason, it's difficult for agents to stay ahead of their positions. If they're agents and they've got their license, there are things about that responsibility becomes very important. One is about your license and when you are supposed to make sure it has been caught up as far as the issues involved in your license existing. So it's important that you be on top of that. And one of the worst things we have is most of you would remember back in the day when Lynn was here. Listen, she was like an old mother hen, and she would be calling you and reminding you. And now, with more mature responsibilities, we don't think about that as often as we should, nor the response to make sure we've got our licenses and everything else taken care of. So, Kay, one of the frustrations, I know you run into this, and you try to help as well to remind people what has to be done. So let's talk about that a minute on making sure that we have responded and we're on top of our issues when it comes to our license.
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways. The easiest way for people to be up on top of that is to just check their emails, check your spam, and watch your mail. Mar, when they are, ready to collect our dues, they give us like months advance notice. So does the state. They send you a notification telling you that your license is about to be renewed. You can also go to your account settings on your MLS if you're a realtor and check there to see what number of hours, continuing education hours you're lacking. And I mean, there's just a lot of ways to do that. You could set up an account on TREC's website that will show you that information as well. If you go to verify.tn.gov, you can look yourself up and it'll show all the classes that you took and when you took them. So, I mean, I was blessed never to have to get that kind of call from Lynn. I'm sure it would have been a very sweet call because that's what she was. But I just always try to do that ahead of time. And a lot of people don't think about their courses, but there's all sorts of ways that you can get credits. One of the things I use MAR for is the free continuing education classes. You can always check. Every month they put a banner up on the front page of your MLS and it tells you about the upcoming CAP classes. A lot of times there's free ones in there. So, those count for electives towards your, and some of them are even core classes. If you are online and you take your continuing education online, if you're using a school like McKissick, or the Real Estate Express, something like that. The CE Shop is real good. They will send you updates. They'll say, hey, it's been 2 years since you took a class. So really it's just about people, focusing on those emails that they get and, taking action.
Yes. And one of the things you need to reminded of is that mama don't do it anymore. Okay.
Right.
You've got to grow up and make sure
Right.
that your responsibilities are there. And you can't come out after you have already missed it and then blame somebody else.
Right.
So just make sure that you've got your details covered and that you're ready to go.
Yeah, our office has 2 bodies, 2 people that answer the phone. So if they're answering the phone and the average call lasts, 2 minutes. I mean, if they took those same 2 minutes and not answered the phone for the office and applied it to us calling all the agents on our roster, they would literally be weeks. They would
Yes.
be weeks calling, and that is with them having to do their other do their other duties. The office staff make sure you get your mail. They keep up with the accounting, the different records. They keep up with your paperwork. They do answer a lot of complicated questions. I know Tennille really does a lot to help new agents. They call on her when they're getting acclimated to stuff, and I'm sure the same happens with Erica in Mississippi. The planning of any events that we may have, keeping the office itself within compliance with the state and other entities that we have to answer to is a lot. Like, just those things make enough work for 2 people to work 40 hours and not run out of stuff to do. So the least we can do is keep up with that. That's how we stay in business, is making sure that our licenses are straight. And the other thing is, I strongly urge people. Lately, I have been getting a lot of calls. Well, not a lot of calls, but more calls than I would like to see from agents who have had people sign stuff that they did not read themselves. You cannot be an effective agent and be a true advocate for your client if you don't know what they're signing. You don't have to be a lawyer, and explain the legalese behind the documents that you give your clients, but know what's in a disclaimer. Know what they're risking when they sign a purchase and sale agreement. Explain to them what a property condition disclosure is. Explain to your clients the truth about those paragraphs as they relate to earnest money. All of that is important and is critical for your business and your reputation as an agent, that you understand those things. So, we're always here, Rosemary, myself, Larry, always here to answer any questions you may have, but it's kind of hard for us to advocate for you if you make a mistake and you don't tell us until after it's already blown out of proportion between you and the client, the other party, or whatever. Just be sure that before you have people take steps to enter into an agreement, that you understand what they're signing and that you can explain it to them with confidence.
Yes, and it's not only the confidence, and it's not being stupid when you have to deal with earnest money,
Mm-hmm.
where it goes, how it goes,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets to be foolish when you don't have a clue and the money is just floating or whatever,
right.
And it's not a healthy approach to what the reality is when it comes to earnest money, where it goes, how it goes, whose is the earnest money, and all those details.
The other thing that I would suggest people do, because I've had 4 situations like this in the last 45 days, 4 situations, some, of the four that, two of them were really minor. One was kind of serious. I'm going to discuss the one that was the most serious. And it involves agents tying the boat on their transaction once it's done. Don't just get your commission check and forget your client. Make sure they have their keys. Make sure that if the other agent has items, that are at the property, that you have scheduled a time for them to pick those up. If there's supposed to be some things that a seller is supposed to take, like just make sure that all those extra things that you write into your contracts are carried out. We haven't had an agent who let her client, which, and part of this is not all her fault, part of it was her client's fault as well, but they didn't try to figure out where the keys were. So when this person goes to their house, they're ready to move into it 2 weeks later, there's no appliances. Like the refrigerator, the stove, the microwave, and the dishwasher, all of it was gone. And the agent says to me, hey, you need to call that listing agent and make them give us our appliances. Well, how do I know that listing agent took the appliances? It's been 2 weeks. You didn't check to make sure that stuff was, she didn't check to make sure the stuff was there before she closed, nor did she go and check to make sure that the house was secure and safe after the fact, and neither did her buyer.
And the truth is, an agent is responsible. They have to be responsible for getting that in the right place when it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, so, I mean, the agent was very adamant, and I mean, she literally wanted us, Best Real Estate Company, to pay for her clients some appliances. That's not what we do, people. We don't do that. It's your job to make sure that your client has everything that they need at the end of the transaction. And if you're not doing that, then, like I said before, you're hurting your client and you're hurting yourself. You're hurting your own reputation in the community. Like, people remember stuff like that. That guy doesn't have any appliances. I don't know if the agent bought him some, but we couldn't buy him.
Exactly. And at some point, if you're, as an agent, not careful, you're going to wind up having some legal responsibility to your clients, and you don't want that.
Right.
So
because that very well could turn into that for the agent.
And you could cry all day long and be frustrated and call everybody else what you want to call them. But the truth is, you've got a responsibility to make sure that you have articulated who, what, when, where, and how it will be done. So it's just that any silly stuff is not allowed in doing a business like that. You've got to get your things together. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So that's just part of living the life. So if you have any questions and you don't know what you should do, you need to talk to somebody early on and make sure exactly where you are and what you should be doing. Okay. What else do we have?
Well, I wanted to talk about Apple. I'm not sure if everybody saw this, but I think it's pretty good. It's a good start.
Okay.
It clearly doesn't solve the housing problem that we have, like the shortage, but Apple announced the other day that they are going to commit $2.5 billion to building affordable housing in California.
In California.
So California is really suffering.
And the cheapest house they have in California is
that's the debate right now. They're saying Apple is going to give this $2.5 billion, but what are they going to build and how affordable is it going to be? So those details they have to work out. My thing is, I think it's very noble of them, because that's not their business. And I know they have their own inside reasons. Maybe they want to attract, new techie people to help them do more to the next generation iPhone besides add a camera. Maybe they have people that are within the company that work there already that are struggling to find fair, affordable housing. Whatever the reason is, I think it's good. And I think other companies should help as well. I mean, especially if they want to attract good talent. I think that would be great for somebody like FedEx to do, or this First New Horizon we're getting that just bought Iberia Bank.
Well, so the reality is they're not doing it for California.
They are doing it for California, Apple is.
Right.
What I'm just saying is, I think,
We need Memphis to be.
yeah, because we definitely have the same situation. We have lots of people who have been priced out of rents. There's a certain segment of our market that we are really struggling to serve because there's not enough housing. They talked about it last week at that housing summit that I went to in great detail, and it does take everybody playing a role, I think, in order to really fix it. And I just think Apple, even though I don't have any, I have one Apple product that I'm kind of stuck with. I'm not a big fan of Apple phones, but I think that does show I think they're showing a good sense of corporate responsibility to the community that they're.
Well, is NAREB being aggressive on doing it?
Well, yeah, I think so. Actually, I think locally there's a lot of organizations that I've seen which are coming together, if for nothing else but to bring awareness. NAREB was one of the sponsors of that big summit they had last week. But there were also banks involved. There was like the city council, and I think a lot of people who are in real estate, but just people who are in other businesses came out just to hear about it. Because
really,
yeah, because there was lots of people there. Just because, like I said, those businesses are trying to attract a certain type of talent. There is like a lot of jobs that are available in Memphis, but they're struggling to fill those jobs, and housing is probably one of the biggest reasons why. So yeah. I didn't see Mar there. That doesn't mean they weren't.
Oh.
I didn't see them, but NAREB was definitely there, and a bunch of other people. It's pretty good.
And they were what are they showing, or what are they having people look at to do it? Do you know?
Well, one of the biggest focuses that they had was on data that was collected by the National Coalition for Low Income Families, and they do like this study where they look at, it's kind of like aggregated numbers, I guess, but they look at like the housing market as a whole, like nationally, and then they break it down into states, and you can even go so far as your county. And so I looked at our county, Shelby, and basically what they did was, I don't know how, I mean, of course they explain all this in the research, but I hadn't read the research in depth because it's so much of it. But I was able to make out what different charts said, and like one of the charts showed that the average rent, in order for a person to pay what the average rent is here in Memphis, and have their rent be at 30% of what their income is, like the person would need to make about $14 an hour, and that's to buy a 1-bedroom apartment. The average person in Memphis, the average is for hourly income is only $9.55. So literally there are people who work 40-hour jobs that their pay is so low that they can't afford to pay for a 1-bedroom apartment and still have money to eat, pay electric, do whatever it is they do. So I'm just saying, if more companies, like people in those neighborhoods, in those situations, they don't have the resources that somebody like an Apple or a FedEx has, where they could really affect change and do it quickly. So I just thought it was a good, Apple doing that is just, hopefully that will spark something for people to do it nationwide. And Memphis, our area isn't the only areas that is being affected by that. Like a lot of People are being priced out of rents in the Northeast. They're being priced out of housing. And a lot of it is going on in the South, and a lot of it is happening on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like three, I mean, clearly it's not happening in the middle of the country because there's not as many people there, but if we're going to continue to attract the people and, have people want to be in our cities, we need to fix the housing problem. It's huge.
Well, do you think the problems with the housing, is it affected by Texas as well, or is that?
Texas can be pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I have a client that was looking to purchase a house in Texas. They since reverted, and then now they're buying a house here. But I mean, the taxes. They were going to live. They had a house on they had a house under contract with another agent, not me. I'm not from Texas, but I was able to talk to them about it. And I mean, the taxes that they were paying for this property was, it was like over $10,000 a year.
Wow.
And I was just like, but you're not really getting anything. This house isn't that spectacular. Like, you could go down the street to, I don't know, Collierville. I was just floored at what they were getting and how much it was costing them. Like, that house that they were looking at or purchasing there, here probably been maybe $350,000. They were going to pay almost $1 million, get a mortgage.
Wow.
Like, I was like, that is just too much. I would probably faint at the knees having to pay a mortgage like that.
Anybody have a question, comment? Help
I
us
do think
through
it's
this.
important for agents to find something that really moves them. I don't know how many people I've ever said this to before. I'm not ashamed to say it. I've been homeless before. I was homeless for a whole year. I lived in my car with a kid. I really couldn't afford rent. So there were people in my community that helped me out, and they saw something in me that I guess made them feel, empathy enough to, give me a chance. I would tell, and I was always open about telling people what I was trying to do, so maybe that's why people helped me. But my kid and I spent a whole year in the car. I know what it means to be homeless. So like, I feel like I've just been kind of attached to that ever since I went there. And I think
were you
that's
able to sleep well?
No, Larry, you try sleeping in the back of a kid.
I can't imagine.
In a car wash stall. Like, I had to do that.
Huh.
So, no, it's not comfortable. It's not safe. You're embarrassed. I was going to my job to work with like all my clothes in the back seat. My kid, is like sleeping on my chest, and I've got like a gear, like, in my bag.
Wow.
It wasn't easy.
But you made it.
Exactly. I made it. Like I said, just by, I continued to go to work like nothing had happened to me. And when people found out or figured out, like, girl, like, why are you so sleepy? Like, I would just be honest. Look, I sleep in my car. Give me my 30-minute lunch. Don't talk to me. I'm going to take a nap. Like, or whatever, and my kid, she remembered it for a long time. It affected her a lot. And so I think once I got out of that, I just was like, I'm going to get somewhere and stay put. And so, my kid and I have lived in the same place ever since. And eventually she stopped asking me questions about it. But it took her years to get it out of her mind.
I can't imagine.
My kid, like, she asked me all kinds of intelligent questions that I had no answer for. So, that really I know that everybody that's homeless or everybody that's struggling to pay their rent or their mortgage or whatever, it's not some lazy idiot that just doesn't care. Like some people, there's truly a gap for them that they need to fill, and I think I want to help to do that if I can. So if people in our office are out there that want to know more about those numbers, they can go to the National Institute for Low Income Families. It's the National Coalition for Low Income Families. They have a website. It's about .org, and they'll tell you how we're faring with the housing crisis.
Okay. Well, we have that's been an interesting conversation, and I hope you'll do well as we move forward. We're coming into the end of the year, and we've got a lot of opportunities to try to make a difference. So if you come up with some ideas that could be helpful for us, let us know, and we'll do all we can to make it better. Okay?
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. Kay, you have something else?
Yeah, but I slipped my mind.
She lost her mind.
I did.
Okay. Okay. But if anything else comes up, let us know, and we'll do all we can to help stay on top of your game and make sure you understand what business is, what you need to be doing, and planning for the end of the year, all that sort of stuff. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And have a great weekend.